The Deep Space Monitoring Station floated silently at the edge of known space. Its metal walls hummed with the soft sounds of machines working day and night. Inside, dozens of alien beings watched screens that showed the empty darkness beyond their empire's borders. Fleet Admiral Kethvar stood before the main display, his forearms crossed behind his back. His blue skin gleamed under the station's lights and his large black eyes never left the screens. He had served the Zephyrian Empire for 60 years and nothing surprised him anymore. The Empire ruled 847 star systems, and they had seen everything the galaxy could offer, or so he thought. "Admiral," called out sensor operator Yixtal from her station. Her voice carried a note of confusion that made Kethvar's head turn. "I'm getting some very strange readings from Sector 779. Kethvar walked over to her console, his heavy boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The operator's 6 fingers danced across the controls, bringing up data that made no sense. "What am I looking at?" Kethvar asked. "Energy readings, sir. But they're impossible. The signature suggests faster than light travel, but the pattern is all wrong. It's not like anything in our database." The Admiral studied the numbers flowing across the screen. In all his years of service, he had seen ships from hundreds of different races. Each species had their own way of traveling between stars, but they all followed the same basic rules. This was different. "Distance?" he asked. 3 light hours from our position, sir. Whatever it is, it's big." Kethvar nodded and moved to the command station. He pressed a button and spoke into the communication device. "All stations, this is Admiral Kethvar. We have an unknown contact in Sector 779. Raise alert level to yellow and prepare for possible first contact procedures." The station came alive with activity. Officers moved quickly to their positions while technicians checked their equipment. Everyone knew that first contact with a new species was serious business for the Empire. Minutes passed. Then something appeared on the long-range scanners that made everyone stop what they were doing. "Visual contact!" Yixtal called out, putting it on the main screen now. The large display at the front of the command center flickered and then showed an image that left everyone staring in silence. Where empty space had been moments before, now floated a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. It was huge, easily 3 kilometers long. But what shocked the Imperial officers was not its size. It was how primitive it looked. The hull appeared to be made of simple metal plates welded together. There were no smooth curves or elegant designs like proper starships had. Instead, it looked like someone had taken a massive metal box and stuck engines on the back. "That can't be right," whispered Communications Officer Veltar. "No primitive species could build something that large." Kethvar said nothing. He was studying the ship's design with growing interest. The vessel looked crude, almost primitive, but the energy readings told a different story. The power output from its engines was enormous, far more than should be possible for such a simple-looking ship. "Run a full scan," he ordered. "I want to know everything about that vessel. What it's made of, how many crew members, weapon systems, everything." The scanning beams reached out across space, invisible fingers of energy that touched the strange ship and bounced back with information. What they found made no sense. "Admiral," Yixtal said, her voice even more confused than before. "The hull is made of steel. Basic iron and carbon steel, but the readings show it's incredibly thick, maybe 20 meters in some places. And sir, there are life forms aboard." "How many?" "Over 1,000, sir. All organic. But the strange thing is their body temperature and life signs don't match any known species in our database." Kethvar felt a cold feeling in his chest. In 847 star systems, the Empire had cataloged millions of species. To find completely unknown life forms was almost impossible. "What about weapons?" he asked. The sensor operator worked her controls for several minutes before answering. "I'm detecting multiple weapon systems, but they're unlike anything we've seen. No plasma cannons, no energy weapons at all. The signatures suggest projectile weapons, but that makes no sense for a ship this advanced." "Projectile weapons?" Kethvar repeated. "You mean they throw things at their enemies?" "The energy patterns suggest they fire solid objects at very high speeds. But sir, for a species to reach faster than light travel while still using such primitive weapons..." She didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. It was impossible. Every species in the galaxy followed the same path of development. First came basic technology, then energy weapons, then space travel. No one used projectile weapons in space combat because they were useless against energy shields. Kethvar made a decision. Yixtal, can you detect any shield generators on that ship? Scanning now, sir. After a moment, she looked up with surprise. Yes, sir. But they're not energy shields. The readings suggest some kind of kinetic barrier system. I've never seen anything like it. The Admiral walked to the center of the command deck and looked at the strange ship on the main screen. Everything about it broke the rules. Primitive construction but advanced propulsion. Projectile weapons but sophisticated shield systems. Unknown life forms with technology that shouldn't exist. Sir, Communications Officer Veltar called out. I'm receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. Put it through. The speakers crackled, and then a series of sounds filled the command center. It wasn't like any language they knew. The sounds were harsh and quick, with strange rhythms that hurt to listen to. Can you translate it? Kethvar asked. Working on it, sir. The computer is analyzing the patterns. Wait. This is interesting. They're not speaking in words. They're transmitting mathematical sequences. Prime numbers, universal constants, geometric patterns. The Admiral nodded. This was standard first contact procedure. Most intelligent species tried to establish communication through mathematics since it was universal. Prepare a response. Send back the same mathematical patterns to show we understand. Then add our own greeting sequence. As the communications officer worked on the message, Kethvar studied the alien ship again. Something about it worried him. The Empire had made contact with hundreds of species over the centuries. Most were primitive and easy to control. A few were advanced but peaceful. None had ever been a threat to Imperial power. But this ship was different. It radiated a sense of purpose that made him uncomfortable. Every line of its hull suggested it was built for one thing: war. Admiral, Yixtal said suddenly, I'm detecting movement. 3 more ships are approaching our position. Kethvar smiled. Good. The patrol squadron is responding to our alert. Have Captain Zorak take his ships to intercept position. Standard first contact formation, but keep weapons ready. Yes, sir. The Admiral watched as 3 Imperial cruisers moved toward the unknown vessel. Each ship was a masterpiece of Imperial engineering, with gleaming hulls and powerful weapons. Against them, the alien ship looked like a piece of space junk. But the energy reading said otherwise. Whatever species had built that ugly metal box, they had power sources that defied understanding. Kethvar had a feeling that this first contact was going to be more interesting than usual. He just hoped it wouldn't be more dangerous. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching the 3 alien ships approach on the main screen. They were beautiful in a way that human ships never were. Smooth curves and gleaming metal that seemed to flow like water frozen in space. No sharp edges or ugly welds like her own vessel. Distance to contacts? She asked. 50,000 kilometers in closing, replied Lieutenant Commander Martinez from the sensor station. Captain, these ships are nothing like anything in our database. Sarah nodded. The database was small since humanity had never met another intelligent species before. Everything they knew about aliens came from the ruins they had found on Mars 3 years ago. Ancient stone buildings buried under red dust, filled with star charts that had led them here. Any response to our mathematical greetings? She asked. Communications Officer Park looked up from her station. Yes, ma'am. They sent back the same sequences, then added their own. Standard first contact procedure, just like the training manual said. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and fear in her chest. First contact with an alien species. Every human had dreamed of this moment since they first looked up at the stars. But the situation was not what anyone had expected. The UNS Defiance was not an exploration ship. It was humanity's first attempt at a deep space warship. When they found the star charts on Mars, the United Nations had made a hard choice. The galaxy might not be friendly, so instead of sending scientists and diplomats, they sent soldiers. Weapon status? Sarah asked. All railgun batteries are loaded and ready, reported Weapons Officer Thompson. Kinetic barriers are at full power. Point defense systems are online. Good, remember people, we're here to make friends if possible. But we're also here to represent humanity. We don't know what these aliens are like, so we stay ready for anything. The 3 alien ships continued their approach. As they got closer, the Defiance's sensors could make out more details. Each ship was about half the size of the human vessel, but they looked far more advanced. Energy readings showed powerful weapon systems and shield generators. Captain, Martinez called out. I'm detecting energy spikes from the lead ship. They're trying to scan us. Let them look, Sarah said. Maybe they'll see we're not a threat and we can start talking properly. She was wrong. The scanning beam that hit the Defiance was unlike anything human scientists had ever encountered. It passed through the ship's hull like it wasn't there, reading everything inside. Every system, every weapon, every person aboard. On his command station light years away, Admiral Kethvar was reading the scan results with growing amazement. Impossible, he whispered. Yixtel, run these scans again. There must be an error. I've run them 3 times, sir. The results are the same. That ship has over 1,200 life forms aboard. The largest crew we've ever encountered on a single vessel. And Admiral, their technology is beyond strange. Kethvar studied the numbers. The alien ship's power core was massive, far larger than anything the Empire used. But instead of elegant energy weapons, it was packed with what looked like metal launchers. Primitive kinetic weapons that fired solid projectiles. What kind of species builds faster than light ships but still throws rocks at their enemies? He muttered. Sir, Communications Officer Veltar interrupted. Captain Zorak is requesting permission to begin standard Imperial greeting protocols. Kethvar knew what that meant. Standard protocols required unknown ships to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. Most species complied quickly when faced with Imperial military might. Granted, he said. Tell Zorak to be careful. These aliens are not like anything we've seen before. Back on the Defiance, Communications Officer Park suddenly looked up with alarm. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien ships. The computer has partially translated it. What do they want? Sarah asked. They're ordering us to power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. They say resistance will result in the destruction of our vessel. The bridge fell silent. Every officer turned to look at their captain. Sarah Chen had fought in 3 wars before joining the Deep Space program. She had faced human enemies who spoke her language and fought with weapons she understood. This was different, but the threat was the same. Response? She asked quietly. Standard diplomatic protocol would be to comply and try to negotiate, said Martinez. Sarah shook her head. These aliens just threatened to destroy us if we don't surrender our ship. That's not diplomacy. That's a mugging. She pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. We came here hoping to make friends with another intelligent species. Instead, we've met someone who thinks they can order us around because they have bigger ships. They're about to learn something about humanity. Battle stations. Throughout the ship, alarm bells rang. Crew members ran to their positions while automated systems powered up weapons that had never been fired in anger. The Defiance had been built with one purpose, to fight and win in space. Open a channel to the alien ships, Sarah ordered. Channel open, ma'am. Attention alien vessels. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations ship Defiance. We came here in peace, but we will not surrender our ship to anyone. We suggest you withdraw and allow proper diplomatic contact to proceed. The response came quickly. 3 beams of bright plasma energy lanced out from the Imperial cruisers, aimed directly at the human ship. Incoming fire! Shouted Martinez. Plasma cannons, multiple impacts. The energy beams struck the Defiance's kinetic barriers with tremendous force. The human ship shook as exotic matter fields deflected the alien weapons, but the barriers held. On the Imperial flagship, Captain Zorak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Impossible. Our plasma cannons should have overloaded their shields instantly. How are they still functional? His weapons officer checked the readings twice before answering. Sir, they're not using energy shields. Their barriers are made of some kind of manipulated matter. Our plasma just passes around them. Then we'll overload their power systems. All ships, continuous fire. Burn through whatever protection they have. The 3 Imperial cruisers opened fire with everything they had. Dozens of plasma beams reached across space, turning the void around the Defiance into a light show of destructive energy. Inside the human ship, the crew felt the impacts but remained calm. They had trained for this. Barriers holding at 90%, Thompson reported. All systems nominal. Sarah watched the alien ships pour fire onto her vessel. Pretty ships with advanced technology. But they were fighting the last war. Humanity had learned long ago that energy weapons had limitations. Target the lead ship, she ordered. Fire railgun batteries 1 through 4. The Defiance's main weapons were not energy beams or plasma cannons. They were magnetic launchers that fired tungsten rods at significant fractions of light speed. Simple kinetic energy weapons that hit like the fist of an angry god. 4 streaks of metal crossed the space between the ships in less than a second. The Imperial cruiser's energy shields, designed to stop plasma and lasers, did nothing to slow down solid matter moving at incredible speed. The tungsten rods punched through the alien ship's hull like bullets through paper. They passed completely through the vessel and out the other side, leaving 4 perfectly round holes that immediately began venting atmosphere and debris. Captain Zorak felt his ship shake as massive explosions tore through the internal decks. Emergency alarms screamed while damage reports flooded in from every section. "Engineering is gone!" his second officer shouted. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. "We're losing power!" "How?" Zorak demanded. "Their weapons have no energy signature. How did they penetrate our shields?" The answer came too late. The Defiance fired again, and this time the tungsten rods struck the cruiser's power core. The Imperial ship vanished in a flash of light that briefly outshone the local star. The 2 remaining cruisers stopped firing. Their captains stared at the space where their flagship had been, trying to understand what had just happened. "Unknown vessel," came a transmission from one of the surviving ships. "We are withdrawing. This encounter is over." Sarah watched the alien ships turn and accelerate away at speeds that made her whistle with appreciation. "Fast ships," she said. "But their shields are useless against kinetic weapons." "Orders, Captain?" asked Martinez. Sarah looked at the debris field where the alien ship had been. Somewhere in that wreckage were the bodies of beings who had made the mistake of threatening humanity. "Send a message to Earth," she said. "Tell them first contact was successful but not friendly. Then start scanning the system. If those aliens come back, they'll bring friends. We need to be ready." Emperor Vostok sat on his crystal throne in the heart of the Imperial Palace, reading the report that had just arrived from the frontier. His golden skin seemed to glow with anger as he read the impossible words written by Admiral Kethvar. "A single alien ship destroyed the cruiser Eternal Blade?" he asked, his voice echoing through the massive throne room. "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty," replied Admiral Kethvar, who stood at attention before the throne. He had traveled here as quickly as possible to deliver the news in person. "The unknown vessel used kinetic weapons that completely bypassed our energy shields." The Emperor rose from his throne, his 12-foot frame towering over everyone in the room. For 300 years, no species had successfully challenged Imperial military might. The Empire's fleets had conquered star system after star system, always finding their superior technology to be enough. "Kinetic weapons?" Vostok repeated. "You're telling me that primitives who throw rocks destroyed an Imperial cruiser?" "Not rocks, Your Majesty. Solid projectiles fired at tremendous speed. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not physical objects moving at near-light velocity." The Emperor walked to the great window that looked out over the Imperial capital. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived and worked in the city below, all serving the Empire that had brought them civilization and order. "What do we know about these aliens?" he asked. Kethvar activated a holographic display that showed an image of the human ship. "They call themselves humans, Your Majesty. Their vessel is crude but effective. Simple metal construction, but with advanced power systems and unusual defensive technology." "How many ships do they have?" "We only encountered one, but our scans detected over 1,200 crew members aboard. That suggests a species capable of supporting large military operations." Emperor Vostok studied the image of the human ship. It looked like something a primitive species might build, all sharp angles and ugly welds. But if it could destroy Imperial cruisers, it was more dangerous than it appeared. "I want these humans eliminated before they become a threat to the Empire," he declared. "How long to assemble a battle fleet?" "For a full battle fleet, Your Majesty?" "Perhaps 2 months. But surely a squadron of heavy cruisers would be sufficient against a single primitive vessel." The Emperor turned from the window, his eyes burning with cold fire. "Admiral, these primitives destroyed one of our ships. We will not make the mistake of underestimating them again. I want 200 ships. I want overwhelming force that will crush them completely. As you command, Your Majesty." "And, Admiral," the Emperor added as Kethvar turned to leave, "I want prisoners. These humans have technology we need to understand. Capture some of them alive so our scientists can study them." 3 weeks later, Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. Around him stretched the largest battle fleet the Empire had assembled in 50 years. 200 ships of various sizes, from fast destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, enough firepower to glass a planet. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump. his second officer announced. "Begin the jump," Kethvar ordered. "It's time to show these humans the true power of the Empire." The fleet vanished from normal space, traveling faster than light toward the system where the humans waited. But when they arrived, they found something that made even the experienced admiral pause in surprise. "Sir," his sensor operator called out, "the human ship is still here, but there are more contacts. Many more." The main screen activated, showing the star system where they had first encountered the humans. The single ugly ship was still there, but it was no longer alone. Around it floated a growing collection of smaller vessels, all with the same crude metal construction. "How many?" Kethvar asked. 37 ships, sir. And Admiral. There's something else. They've built some kind of base on one of the asteroids in this system." Kethvar studied the tactical display. In just 3 weeks, the humans had somehow built an entire small fleet and established a military base. "How was that possible?" "Sir," Communications Officer Veltar reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Put it through." The main screen changed to show the interior of the human ship's bridge. A female human sat in what was obviously the captain's chair, her face calm despite being outnumbered 7-1. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the UNS Defiance," the human said. "You've returned with more ships, which suggests you didn't learn the lesson from our last meeting." Kethvar stepped forward. "I am Fleet Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. You are in Imperial space and will surrender immediately or be destroyed." The human captain smiled, and something about that expression made Kethvar uncomfortable. "Admiral, you seem to think you have an advantage because you brought more ships. Let me explain something about humans that you might find interesting." She pressed a button and the view shifted to show the asteroid base the humans had built. It was covered with weapon emplacements and defensive structures that looked like metal thorns growing from the rock. "We are a species that has never known true peace," Captain Chen continued. "For 50,000 years we have fought wars against each other. We learned to turn everything into a weapon, every piece of technology into a tool for killing. When you attacked us 3 weeks ago, you made us treat you like an enemy. That was a mistake." The human ships began to move, forming a defensive formation around their base. But as they moved, Kethvar's sensors detected something that made no sense. "Sir," his sensor operator said quietly, "the human ships are launching something. Thousands of small objects. Missiles." Kethvar asked. "No, sir. They appear to be drones. Small automated craft. They're spreading out through the system." On the screen, Captain Chen was still talking. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of, Admiral. We've spent the last 3 weeks building. Our ship has manufacturing systems that can turn raw asteroids into weapons of war. We've been very busy." Kethvar felt a cold fear growing in his chest. "All ships begin attack formation. Target their base first, then the ships." The Imperial fleet moved forward, 200 powerful warships against 37 crude human vessels. It should have been a slaughter, it was. Just not the slaughter Kethvar expected. The human drones reached the Imperial fleet first. Thousands of small automated fighters, each one fast and deadly. They swarmed around the Imperial ships like angry insects, firing kinetic weapons that punched through energy shields like they weren't there. "Shields are useless," called out the captain of the destroyer Swift Death. "These weapons are penetrating all our defenses." Kethvar watched in horror as his beautiful fleet was torn apart by ugly little drones that looked like flying metal boxes. Imperial ships that had conquered star systems were being destroyed by primitive technology that shouldn't work. "Return fire. All ships, continuous bombardment." The Imperial fleet's energy weapons lit up the darkness, plasma beams and laser cannons firing in all directions. They destroyed hundreds of human drones, but for every one they killed, 3 more took its place. And then the human ships themselves joined the battle. The UNS Defiance and its smaller companions opened fire with their railguns, sending streams of tungsten projectiles across space at incredible speeds. Imperial ships died as solid metal rods punched through their hulls and exploded inside their vital systems. "This is impossible," Kethvar shouted. "How can primitives be defeating the Imperial Navy?" His tactical officer had been studying the human weapons and had an answer. "Sir, their technology is specifically designed to counter energy-based defenses. It's like they built everything to fight opponents who use the same weapons we do." The battle raged for hours. When it ended, 47 Imperial ships had been destroyed and many more were damaged. The human fleet had lost only 3 vessels, and they were already building replacements using materials harvested from the wreckage. Kethvar stood on his damaged bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed his defeat. 200 ships reduced to smoking metal and debris, defeated by an enemy that shouldn't exist. Admiral, his communications officer said quietly, the humans are transmitting again. Captain Chen appeared on the screen once more. This time her ship's bridge showed damage from the battle, but she still looked calm and confident. Admiral Kethvar, she said, you've now learned what happens when you threaten humanity. We didn't come here to make war, but we're very good at it when we have to be. I suggest you go home and tell your empire to leave us alone. Kethvar wanted to refuse to order his remaining ships to continue the attack, but he had lost too many good officers and crew members already, and something told him that attacking again would only make things worse. We are withdrawing, he said finally, but this is not over. Yes, it is, Captain Chen replied, because now you know what humans really are, and that knowledge is going to spread through your empire like a virus. Sleep well, Admiral. The remaining Imperial ships limped away from the human system, carrying with them the news that would change everything. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Empire had met an enemy it could not defeat. The Imperial War Council had not met in emergency session for over 200 years. The massive chamber beneath the Imperial Palace filled with the Empire's greatest military minds, all summoned by Emperor Vostok to discuss what many were calling impossible. General Thaxion, Supreme Commander of Imperial Ground Forces, stood at the central podium reading from a data tablet. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke words that made the assembled officers shift uncomfortably in their seats. 47 ships destroyed, 31 ships damaged beyond immediate repair. Total crew casualties over 40,000 Imperial personnel. He looked up from the tablet. All this from an encounter with 37 primitive vessels. Minister of Intelligence Kexara rose from her seat, her purple skin darker than usual with stress. The word primitive no longer applies to these humans. Our analysis of the battle data suggests we are dealing with a species that has perfected the art of warfare in ways we never considered. Emperor Vostok sat silent on his throne, listening to his advisors debate the impossible. Finally he spoke, and every voice in the chamber fell silent. Tell me about these humans, he commanded. Everything we know. Intelligence Minister Kexara activated a holographic display that showed a blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star. The humans come from a world they call Earth, located in an isolated system approximately 40,000 light-years from our nearest border. Based on our deep space scans, it appears to be their only inhabited world. One planet? Asked General Thaxion. How can a single planet species pose a threat to an empire of 847 systems? Because of what that planet created, Kexara replied. The display changed to show images captured by long-range sensors. Cities that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, industrial complexes that could be seen from space, and everywhere the signs of a world that had spent millennia preparing for war. Earth shows evidence of constant warfare stretching back tens of thousands of years, she continued. Unlike most species, humans never achieved lasting peace. They fought each other continuously, developing increasingly sophisticated ways to kill their own kind. Fleet Admiral Kethvar, still bearing the scars of his defeat, stood and addressed the council. Your Majesty, I have fought the humans twice now. Their technology is specifically designed to counter everything we rely on. Energy shields, plasma weapons, standard fleet tactics, none of it works against them. How is that possible? Demanded Space Marshal Vortex. No species could anticipate our specific technologies without prior contact. They didn't need to anticipate our technology, Kethvar replied. They designed their weapons to defeat every possible defense. Kinetic weapons that bypass energy shields, swarming tactics that overwhelm numerical superiority, adaptive manufacturing that turns any raw material into weapons of war. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. You're saying they prepared for a war against an unknown enemy? No, Your Majesty. They prepared for war against everyone. Humans appear to be a species that assumes every first contact will lead to conflict. They built their entire civilization around the idea that someday, someone would try to destroy them. Minister Kexara added more images to the display. Our long-range surveillance has detected something else troubling. Human colony ships, dozens of them, heading toward our border systems. The council chamber erupted in alarmed voices. The idea of an aggressive species actively expanding toward imperial space was beyond their experience. How long until they reach our territory? The Emperor asked. At their current speed, approximately 18 months for the first wave. But Your Majesty, there's something else. The ships they're sending aren't just colony vessels. They're mobile manufacturing platforms. Each one can establish an industrial base and begin producing military hardware within weeks of arrival. General Thaxion studied the images of the approaching human ships. They're not just colonizing, they're establishing forward military bases. Exactly, Kexara confirmed. Every human colony will be a potential threat to nearby Imperial systems. They're not expanding like a normal species. They're expanding like an army. Emperor Vostok rose from his throne and walked to the holographic display. He studied the images of human ships and weapons, trying to understand how his mighty empire had encountered something it couldn't defeat. "What do our scientists say about their technology?" he asked. Chief Science Advisor Melkarn stepped forward, her 8 legs clicking on the stone floor. "Your Majesty, human technology follows completely different development paths than any known species. Most civilizations develop energy weapons because they are efficient and clean. Humans perfected kinetic weapons because they are unstoppable and brutal. But kinetic weapons are primitive," protested Marshal Vortex. "Not the way humans build them," Melkarn replied. "They fire solid projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic energy is enormous. Their weapons don't just damage targets, they completely destroy them." The Emperor studied the data flowing across the display. Ship designs that prioritized function over beauty, weapons that chose effectiveness over elegance, industrial capacity that could turn asteroids into fleets in a matter of weeks. They're not just warriors, he realized. They're a species that has turned warfare into a science. "Yes, Your Majesty," agreed Kethvar, "and they're very good at it." The Emperor returned to his throne and sat in silence for several minutes while the council waited. Finally, he spoke. "How many ships would we need to guarantee victory against the humans?" Fleet Admiral Kethvar considered the question carefully. "Based on their demonstrated capabilities, I would estimate we need at least a 5-to-1 numerical advantage. Perhaps more." "Then we will give you more," the Emperor declared. "I am ordering the mobilization of the Grand Armada. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier the Empire can muster." The council fell silent. The Grand Armada had never been fully assembled before. It would strip defenses from hundreds of star systems and concentrate the Empire's entire military might in one massive fleet. "Your Majesty," General Thaxion said carefully, "the Grand Armada consists of over 2,000 ships. Mobilizing it will take months and leave our other territories vulnerable." "Our other territories face no threats," the Emperor replied. "These humans are the first species in 3 centuries to successfully resist Imperial power. If we do not crush them completely, other species might begin to think the Empire can be defeated." Intelligence Minister Kexara raised a tentative hand. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider diplomatic solutions. The humans have shown they're willing to negotiate." "They destroyed 47 Imperial ships," the Emperor shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They killed 40,000 of our people. There will be no negotiations with these barbarians." He stood again, his massive frame radiating authority and anger. "The humans believe they can challenge the Zephyrian Empire because they won 2 small battles. They will learn what happens when the full might of our civilization is brought to bear against them." The Emperor looked around the chamber at his military commanders. "I want the Grand Armada assembled and ready to move within 3 months. We will travel to human space and eliminate this threat before it can spread further." "What are your orders regarding prisoners?" asked General Thaxion. The Emperor's eyes glowed with cold fire. "No prisoners. These humans have proven they cannot be controlled or civilized. We will destroy their ships, burn their colonies, and make sure no other species ever forgets what happens when someone challenges Imperial authority." As the council dispersed to begin preparations for the largest military operation in Imperial history, none of them noticed the small communication device hidden in the chamber's ceiling, a device that had been placed there by human intelligence operatives who had infiltrated the Imperial capital weeks ago. Captain Sarah Chen listened to the recording of the Imperial War Council meeting from her command chair aboard the UNS Defiance. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for what they all knew was coming. "So," she said to her first officer, 2,000 ships. The Emperor wants to make an example of us." "Orders, Captain?" Lieutenant Commander Martinez asked. Sarah looked at the star chart that showed human colony ships spreading across the galaxy, each one carrying weapons and manufacturing equipment that could turn any system into a fortress. "Send a message to Earth," she said. Tell them the Empire is mobilizing everything they have against us. It's time to show these aliens what humanity is really capable of when we stop holding back. The war that would reshape the galaxy was about to begin. 3 months later, the Grand Armada of the Zephyrian Empire emerged from hyperspace at the edge of what they still called the human system. 2,000 ships of every class and size, stretching across space in a formation that had never been seen before in galactic history. Emperor Vostok stood on the bridge of his personal flagship, the absolute authority, watching the tactical displays that showed his overwhelming force. Behind him, the greatest military commanders in the Empire waited for his orders to begin the final destruction of the human threat. "Sensor report," he commanded. "Your Imperial Majesty." The sensor operator began, then paused. "Sir, the readings are unusual." "Explain." "We are detecting 30 human ships in the system, but they are not in defensive positions. They appear to be arranged around what looks like a massive construction project on the largest asteroid." The main screen activated, showing the human system, where once a single ugly ship had floated alone. Now dozens of human vessels surrounded an asteroid that had been completely transformed. Metal structures covered its surface like a technological skin, bristling with weapons and industrial equipment. "It appears to be some kind of fortress," the sensor operator continued. "But the power readings are enormous, far beyond anything we expected." Fleet Admiral Kethvar studied the display with growing unease. "Your Majesty, the humans have had 3 months to prepare. They may have more surprises waiting for us." Emperor Vostok smiled coldly. "What surprises could they have that would matter against 2,000 ships?" "Begin the attack. I want that asteroid base destroyed and every human vessel eliminated." The Grand Armada moved forward like a tide of metal death. Never before had so much destructive power been concentrated in one place. The humans were outnumbered by more than 60 to 1. From her command chair aboard the UNS Defiance, Captain Sarah Chen watched the Imperial fleet approach. Her ship was scarred from months of constant construction work, and her crew showed the exhaustion of building humanity's first true military base in alien space. "All stations report ready," Lieutenant Commander Martinez announced. "Signal from Earth Command," Communications Officer Park added. "Admiral Harrison sends his regards and says the cavalry is on the way." Sarah smiled. "Too bad they'll miss the show. Open a channel to the Imperial flagship." The face of Emperor Vostok appeared on the main screen, his golden features twisted with arrogance and rage. "Human Captain, you're looking at the assembled might of an empire that rules 847 star systems. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." "Emperor Vostok," Sarah replied calmly. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations ship Defiance. You've made a long trip to learn something that you should have understood after our first meeting." "And what is that?" Sarah's expression grew hard. "You asked to see what humans are capable of. We tried to be gentle before. We only showed you a small sample of our abilities, but you kept pushing. You kept threatening us. So now you're going to see what humanity really is." She pressed a button on her command console. "You see, Emperor, you made a fundamental mistake. You thought we were just another species you could conquer. But we're not. We are a species that has never known true peace. We have spent 50,000 years learning to kill each other with increasing efficiency. We split the atom and immediately turned it into a weapon. We reached for the stars and brought our wars with us." The asteroid base began to transform. Sections of its surface opened like flower petals, revealing weapon systems that defied Imperial understanding. Not just railguns and kinetic weapons, but devices that human scientists had been developing in secret for decades. "You've awakened something that should have stayed sleeping," Sarah continued. "You wanted to see our technology? Here it is." Streams of projectiles erupted from the human base, but these were unlike anything the Empire had seen before. The rounds moved at speeds that approached light itself, crossing the vast distance between the base and the Imperial fleet in seconds. The first wave of projectiles struck the outer edge of the Grand Armada with devastating effect. Imperial ships that had never known defeat exploded into expanding clouds of debris as relativistic rounds punched through their hulls with the force of small stars. "Impossible," Emperor Vostok screamed. "Nothing can accelerate matter to those speeds." "Humans can," Sarah replied. "We've had a very long time to figure out how to kill things efficiently." The human ships joined the assault, their crude appearance now revealed as deliberate misdirection. Each vessel opened fire with weapons that Imperial science said couldn't exist. particle beams that ignored energy shields, gravity weapons that crushed ships like tin cans, and swarms of drones that seemed to multiply as they fought. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as his beautiful fleet was systematically destroyed by an enemy that shouldn't exist. "Your Majesty, we must withdraw. Our weapons are useless against them." "No," the Emperor shouted. "I will not be defeated by primitives. All ships ramming speed. If we cannot destroy them with weapons, we will crush them with our hulls." It was the worst possible order he could have given. The human base had been designed specifically to counter massed attacks. As the Imperial ships accelerated toward their target, thousands of defensive drones emerged from hidden bays. Each one was programmed with one simple mission: prevent any Imperial ship from reaching the base. The space around the asteroid became a killing field. Human drones swarmed around Imperial vessels, cutting them apart with precision weapons while automated defense systems fired continuously from the base itself. Ships that had taken decades to build were destroyed in minutes. Emperor Vostok felt his flagship shake as human weapons tore through its hull. Around him, his officers called out damage reports that spoke of a vessel dying by degrees. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethvar shouted over the noise of failing systems, "we must abandon ship. The humans are targeting our bridge." "Never," Vostok declared. "I am the Emperor of the greatest civilization in the galaxy. I will not flee from barbarians." A human projectile punched through the Absolute Authority's armor and exploded deep within the ship's core. The flagship of the Zephyrian Empire broke apart in a flash of light that briefly outshone the system's star. The death of their emperor sent shockwaves through the remaining Imperial forces. Without central command, individual ship captains began making their own decisions. Most chose to flee. Captain Sarah Chen watched the remnants of the Grand Armada retreat toward the edge of the system. Of 2,000 ships, fewer than 300 remained operational. The rest floated as wreckage in the void, testament to the price of threatening humanity. "Damage report," she ordered. "Minimal losses," Martinez replied. "The base took some hits, but all systems are operational. We lost 2 ships and suffered damage to 4 others." Sarah nodded. The battle had been decisive, but she knew it was only the beginning. The surviving Imperial ships would carry word of their defeat back to the core systems. Soon, every species in the galaxy would know that the mighty Zephyrian Empire had been broken by humans. "Captain," Communications Officer Park called out, "I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching from the Earth direction." The main screen shifted to show the new arrivals. Dozens of human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything the Empire had seen before. Colony ships that were actually mobile weapons platforms, construction vessels that could turn any asteroid field into a fortress, and warships that made the UNS Defiance look like a patrol boat. Admiral Rebecca Harrison's face appeared on the communication screen. "Sarah, sorry we're late. Looks like you started the party without us." "Just finished it, actually," Sarah replied. "The Empire sent everything they had. It wasn't enough." Admiral Harrison studied the tactical display that showed the wreckage of the Grand Armada. "How many survivors?" "Maybe 300 ships out of 2,000. They're running back to their core systems as fast as they can." "Good. Let them spread the word about what happens when you threaten humanity." Harrison's expression grew serious. "Sarah, Earth Command has new orders for you. The Imperial capital is only 6 months away at maximum speed. We're going to pay them a visit." Sarah smiled. "Finally. I was getting tired of fighting defensive battles." "This isn't about conquest," Harrison continued. "It's about making sure no one ever threatens human space again. We're going to demonstrate to every species in the galaxy that humanity is not to be trifled with." As the surviving Imperial ships fled toward home, they carried with them a message that would transform galactic civilization. The humans were no longer an unknown threat lurking at the edge of space. They were an active force that could destroy any enemy, no matter how powerful. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled 847 star systems for centuries, would never recover from the loss of the Grand Armada. Other species that had lived under Imperial rule would see the footage of human weapons tearing through advanced starships and draw their own conclusions. And in the depths of space, human colony ships continued their expansion across the galaxy, each one carrying the technology and weapons needed to establish humanity as the dominant military force in known space.